And I love the image in 1 Peter of Jesus emptying himself. And during Lent, this is one of those things where when we talk about giving up, people lodge it in this text. That Jesus emptied himself, all that was divine and holy. He empties himself to be in full communion with the people. He allows himself to know the pains, the hurts, the tears, the brokenness of humanity, giving himself over completely. And so we have often thought, what does it mean for us to empty ourselves, to give things up? But rather, how are we invited? Not so much just to give things up, but to walk in the model of Jesus, who proclaims life for the people, who gives us this promise of baptism, not to simply wash our hands or feet or heads and feel like we've washed off some dirt, but rather to allow our very hearts and lives to be turned or reoriented again to God and God's Word. Now, if you were here on Ash Wednesday, you know that there are the trials and the temptation that Jesus, as Mark is apt to say, is immediately driven out into the wilderness, where he experiences the challenges of that day. He is tempted. There are the wildebeest, the wild beasts that surround him. But God journeys with, in the form of angels or hosts, messengers. And so we are invited into this journey from the water washing over us and being proclaimed as good out into the wilderness of our lives. We are driven immediately out into the world. Of course, last week we had the Transfiguration, where they are driven back to the plain. Today we are driven out into the wilderness. To think about what are the temptations, the trials, the brokenness, the places of sin in our lives and in the life of the world. And we are sent forth that there might be transformation in how we empty ourselves, how we become servants one to another. Servants of God. That what we catch a glimpse of in the promise of the rainbow and the beloved words spoken at baptism go out the doors and into the world. That the promise passes on to descendants, and not biological descendants, but descendants, every person that we meet. That pay it forward mentality. That God's blessing ripples out into the world and brings transformation one by one by one. Changing hearts and minds, giving a new face for humanity. As we gather this day, we put our arms out to receive that promise. Know that we're flawed, imperfect. That there are those places of struggle, of addiction, of self-inflicted pain or other-inflicted pain. That there are those places where our life just seems to break down. There are places where our community seems to break down. Violence in homes and on the street. A police officer killed. We struggle with what that means. But we also know that God will not abandon us. And that as we enter into this season of renewal and this promise washing over us, that it leads us forward. Forward through the brokenness to that point of death, where we truly surrender ourselves. As Jesus empties himself even to the point of death, death on a cross, that we journey that way.
Mommy.
Emptying ourselves and allowing God to transform. Because from death springs new life. On Wednesday nights, we will be talking about sowing the seeds of faith. What does it mean to take the seed and plant it in the soil? Have it covered over. to see it through care and nurture begin to spring forth. To bring forth life in the midst of our waiting for spring, of longing for the Paschal feast. As you look at the people here today, I invite you to think of them as sojourners. Sojourners through this season. And when you look at them, think of how each one has been made very good. I often tell couples in premarital counseling that we're pretty quick after about the first 6 months to find all of the foibles and the flaws and to lift them up. Some might say, nag a little bit. But what happens if not just with the person that you love and care about, or a parent or a sibling or a friend? What if you look at them first as that point of original blessing? What is significant in them that they are gifting you? How are they God's presence for you this day? Not to say that there aren't times where you get frustrated with each other, don't want to talk to them, don't want to see them, wake up cranky on the wrong side of the bed. But then how are we reshaped back to that point of blessing? In miniature, it becomes our Lenten journey of God's reminder to us of blessing. And our waking up, struggling, our days of trial. And then God coming back in mercy, saying, remember those things that I created in you? I still see them. And it is a banner over you, a rainbow of promise. And it is a mark on your forehead that you are beloved. In that journey forward, throughout the Lenten season,